Hello and welcome to a VSA Capital video blog, and delighted today to have James Anderson all the way from Vancouver, who is the CEO of the fastest growing silver producer in Mexico, and it is the one and only Guanajuato Silver. James, how are you?
Very well. Thanks for having us on this morning.
Well, it's this afternoon over here. Of course, we have an 8-hour time difference.
That's how we work in this 24-hour round sphere these days. There could be different time zones everywhere.
Well, we'll come on to that, of course, because you can. The nice thing is you can trade your stock around the globe as well. But we'll come on to that a little bit later. But first of all, I introduce you as the fastest growing silver producer in Mexico. Do you want to just elaborate on that possibly? Because you first of all, you've had recently record annual results, record first quarter results. You are producing silver, and you are a pure silver. Well, you're not a pure silver producer. You have a few byproducts, but you are a silver producer. Silver isn't a byproduct of some other form of mining, which is important. Right. Do you want to just quickly describe how you've got to this position really relatively quickly?
Yeah, for sure. So we, at the board level, we have a very positive view on the price of silver. So a couple of years ago, we looked at different older mining jurisdictions in Mexico. Guanajuato came to the forefront for us because it had been divvied up, Andrew, into the hands of a bunch of different mining companies. We've done a pretty good job over the last 24 months of consolidating a lot of those assets. And Guanajuato Silver is Mexico's fastest growing silver mining company. We've now purchased 4 mines, 3 production facilities. If you look at the slide in our presentation that shows our quarter-on-quarter growth of silver equivalent production, it goes like that in a manner that no other junior mining company is doing. And to your point about us being very silvery, a little over than 50% of the revenues of the company come from silver. Not very many of the silver companies can say that. And normally, especially in Mexico, a lot of the mines will have lead and zinc associated with that. That's normal in nature. But I think when people want exposure to a very silver specific mining entity, we can offer that for them.
I mean, we in the UK, we do know a little bit about Mexican silver, obviously, because we have Fresnillo, which is one of our FTSE 100 companies. And actually, you are basically in the Fresnillo neighborhood, aren't you?
Yeah, that's correct. So Fresnillo is named after a very old historical mining town called Fresnillo to the north of us, just like us. And we took a page out of that book and called ourselves Guanajuato. I will say that if you have to spend a weekend in Fresnillo or a weekend in Guanajuato, pick Guanajuato. It's a much nicer place to hang out. But Fresnillo is the world's largest silver mining company. And again, to your point, Andrew, we're trying to draft in behind that story and how they're managing things. Mexico, in case anybody doesn't know, Mexico is the largest silver mining country in the world, followed by Peru. And I think that's one of the constraints these days in the silver mining business. Where do you go to get more silver for a world that demands more silver for industrial uses and for photovoltaics in the solar panel industry? Peru has significant political problems these days. So, how far down market country-wise do you want to go? So I think Mexico is the place to be. And that's certainly where we have focused our energies.
And you've done it remarkably quickly as well. I mean, most people are used to junior mining companies, being in exploration, not in production. But you've now got, as you said, 3 production facilities. So it's not even as though you're just one either. You've gotten really rapidly. How have you been able to do this? Where have you got the assets from, and how have you got them so cheaply?
Yeah, so we've gotten the assets by purchasing them in 2 different transactions from 2 different mining companies. Both of them are a little bit different. One of the assets from Endeavor Silver, we purchased the El Cubo mine. We purchased that after Endeavor had closed it down, and they're off still working in Mexico and working on perhaps a bigger development project. So that's fine. We saw that as an opportunity, and especially a price opportunity. A lot of times the mining companies spend a lot of money at the front end when they're putting these things into production. I don't view that as a good way to deliver value to shareholders. The last time that El Cubo changed hands was in 2012. Endeavor paid $200 million for it. We paid $15 million. They spent about $35 million building the plant that we now own. we spent about $5 million refurbishing it. Now, when you buy fixer-uppers, Andrew, you have to, continue to spend some money for a little while to make sure that they're, in the mining field, making sure that they're safe and able to produce effectively into the years ahead. So we're still in that process. The other transaction that we did in a very similar way, it's more difficult to tell you or give your audience a view of exactly what the assets are worth, these other 3 mines and 2 production facilities, but we calculate the assets to be worth about $100 million on the back of an envelope. We paid 14.7 million for those ones. So I think that's a good look at how we've constructed this. To your comment about how long things take in the mining business, I think we've done an extraordinarily good job of putting all of these assets back into production systematically. Again, you can see that on our production profile, and it just doesn't happen very often in the mining business.
I mean, I suppose the worry from when you say, I mean, they sound like incredible numbers, but the worry, I suppose, would be that wherever you bought something and they've mined all the silver already, but actually you're out there drilling, looking for more, aren't you, and increasing the resource.
Yeah, that's right. So the resources that we bought from these, in these transactions are relatively modest. However, I answer that in 2 different ways. We are doing a lot of exploration and a lot of exploration drilling. We have 5 drill rigs turning as we speak, 3 of them at our mine in Durango, Mexico, a little bit further north than Guanajuato. Those are 3 drill rigs that we own. They're smaller drill rigs, and they basically stay out in front of where we're mining and add additional tons and ounces on an ongoing basis. And they've been working there for a long time to do that. In Guanajuato, we've got 2 drill rigs underground, one at our San Ignacio mine and one at El Cubo, doing the same thing, finding additional material. But I think an alternate answer, perhaps a better answer for people who are concerned about that, these are long-lived mines. The shortest lived mine in our portfolio is Topia. It's been in production for 70 years. The longest one is Valenciana, and it's been in production on and off, but mostly on for 450 years. So I just don't think that we're going to run out of material anytime soon, so long as you point out, so long as we continue to reinvest money in the mining business.
And in terms of your strategy, I mean, obviously you're in production, you're drilling to build up the resource. Are you looking at more acquisitions in the area? Because there's still some possibilities, aren't there?
There are, and the short answer is yes. I don't like to be too coy about that. We've built the company very swiftly, and I think we've done a very good job of doing that. However, I don't think that we're big enough yet. I don't think that the company is big enough to be truly sustainable in up and down cycles in the mining business and in the metals pricing business. Also, our exclusively Mexican team, they know and understand other mining assets in the neighborhood that might be for sale. I pretty much have a view of mining assets in Mexico that are in public companies. Well, they don't necessarily have that necessary filter on the assets that they're looking at. So we continue to look at a number of different assets that would be immediately accretive to shareholder interests. And that's another big difference, right? So I don't want to pull the trigger on a transaction to get bigger just for bigger purposes. I don't want to do that if it's going to cost us a whole bunch of money and bend the fabric of the company too far out. But there are assets that I believe that can be immediately accretive. And if we can do that, just like we did with the last transaction last August, I think looking back, it's obvious today how accretive and how immediately impactful those are.
And you mentioned the point there. I mean, you have a very strong team in Mexico. You are basically Mexican, and you're also well connected politically there, aren't you? So I mean, you really are on the ground, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true, and I think that's best illustrated with our president and head of Mexican operations, Ramon Davila. Ramon has what I think is the best CV in Mexican mining. He's had huge success throughout his career, including being one of the key components, one of the original shareholders and chief operating officer of First Majestic. He built that company from zero production to 12 million silver equivalent ounces production per year, from 4 employees when he joined to 4,000 employees when he left. And in terms of, political, political connections, I don't want to overplay that card too much, but Ramon was he left First Majestic to take on a role as economy secretary for the state of Durango, where he lives. And, as the economy minister, he was able to liaise with politicians both locally and nationally. Ramon represents us on the the Mining Institute in Mexico. And so those sort of connections are very important. Mexico is right now producing a new mining law, and to be able to navigate the different aspects of that, I think is very important to us in terms of being able to plan our future.
So let's just move a little bit on. You mentioned that silver. One of the differences with silver, perhaps to say gold, which everybody tends to focus on more, is of course it has far more industrial use. And you touched on some of the uses. Let's just explore that for a minute if we can. Obviously, the silver price now is sort of hovering around the $25 mark, which is pretty strong from where it was actually, and is outperforming gold at the moment. I'd just like to, my own personal view is I think we can see $30 quite easily, but it is a lot of it is to do with photovoltaic, isn't it? And the fact that these solar panels are about to become double panels and therefore need more silver. And I know you follow certain commentators who are very close to the Chinese market, and if that takes silver, I think at the moment they use about 12% of all the silver for in these photovoltaic cells. If they do these doubles, theoretically that could double. I'm not saying it will, but theoretically it could go to 24%, which would be a huge driver for the silver price. I mean, do you want to just expand on that yourself a little?
Well, I think you've touched on a lot of the general themes that we believe and that I think is going to impact the silver market. Silver is very volatile. It's certainly much more volatile than gold. I think a lot of your viewers will understand the concept, at least whether they believe it or not, is a different thing, but they'll understand the concept of the continual devaluations of the currency markets in the world. It would seem that central banks and treasuries all over the world want to devalue their currencies. Well, what will that benefit? Well, it will necessarily benefit precious metals, and I think we've seen that with gold reaching new all-time highs in many currencies, including the pound, including the Aussie dollar, the Canadian dollar, and very soon it would seem the US dollar as well, which in itself has been quite strong against other currencies. Okay. What about silver? Well, I think that silver always is the poor man's gold. The correlation between gold and silver pricing is very, very good. However, as you point out, silver is really leading the price of gold right now. And I think for all of those industrial uses that you were talking about, you cannot have a cell phone, you cannot have a computer. Hard to imagine a modern world without silver solders. Silver is the most conductive element that we have. So the use of silver in modern 21st century industrial applications is irreplaceable. But that solar angle, I think, is very important. Currently, we only get about 3.8% of our electricity worldwide from solar power. Well, whether you like it or not, governments want it. And governments are mandating businesses and utilities all over the world to expand their solar footprint. So in China, you're having massive solar farms, and also in Europe, and more slowly in the United States. But you know what our American folks are like? Once they turn their attention to something, it's pretty dramatic. And I think that turn in the United States is just happening right now. So I think we'll continue to have very large demand for photovoltaics. You can't make those things without silver, period. So will we continue to have greater demand for silver? And it's inelastic demand, right? It maybe costs $15, $20, $25 per solar panel for the silver that's in it. Well, you could double that. No one's going to bat an eye. That is not an important component part of that industrial application. So silver can run a long, long way vis-a-vis gold, and I don't know and be inelastic in terms of there will be a real lack of answer from the mining community. Fully 70% of the silver that gets mined in the world comes as byproduct silver. So you are not going to put a zinc mine into production, or a copper mine for that matter, only just to get silver as byproduct. So it's very inelastic, and your $30 silver number, I think that's spot on. I think silver on the charts that I see can run to $32 easily without having any other big moves in gold or corresponding moves in other metals.
So we've just announced actually the UK's largest solar farm is going to be built in Kent, and it'll be funny to think that that's going to be a big mover for the silver price, and we should connect the two together. But it's true. I mean, again, the other thing about obviously someone like yourself at Guanajuato Silver is that you're very operationally geared to the silver price, because you've got your cost of production. So every dollar really is quite a big bang for its buck, so to speak, isn't it?
Absolutely. You can, and I mean, a lot of mining operations are like this. However, with the volatility that we see in silver, if you've got to run to, from $25 to $30 in silver, it's a huge benefit for us. Very geared to silver, because right now, I mean, we can produce the same amount of silver for very little more, but sell it for 25% higher prices. We've seen that in just the last 6 weeks. When you and I met in Toronto, silver was just over $20 an ounce, and this morning it's over $25. And that's a big move in an important metal. So there's no comment from that in the mainstream press about that move. There's no comment about silver, about the necessities for silver. So I view all of that as very, very bullish in the market.
And actually, you have a very clever way, don't you, of selling silver at $30, because you can actually buy a Guanajuato silver bar, I think it is, at $30 an ounce, and keep it yourself.
We do. On our website, we've got silver bars. We've got silver coins for sale. They're beautiful. Perhaps I'm a little bit biased, but I think that our Guanajuato silver logos and marketing elements, I think that's good, and we've sold a lot of them. There's a lot of people who are very happy about the company and about how we're going about with our 100% Mexican staff, about how we're going about environmentally in an environmentally sensitive fashion, restoring these older mines to their full capacity. So a lot of people are very happy about that, and we've sold a lot of the coins. It's basically for marketing purposes, but I think that you bring up a really interesting point. There are a lot of buyers of silver coins and bars who always get very upset because they have to pay a very large premium over where the spot price of silver trades on an industrial basis. And that's true. It's simply a comment about how much it takes, the dollars that it takes to fabricate the coins and bars. How do you even that out? Well, you even that out a little bit with a significantly higher price for silver. The silver gold ratio continues to be out of whack on a historical basis. It's about 85-1 here right now. If that were to straighten out back to more historical levels, you can have gold staying exactly where it is, but you'll have a big run in silver up to $35 or $40 an ounce.
It does sound pretty exciting. So we're gonna have to wrap it up pretty soon. But I mean, the nice thing is obviously your primary listing is on the TSX-V, and you're based in Vancouver, but you have now got a dual listing in London on the Aquis exchange. So people can actually buy your stock in London and put it into their SIPs and ISAs and through their retail platforms. And of course, for anybody who thinks that your story about silver looks pretty exciting, it's a great way of getting the excitement rather than a big, boring FTSE 100 stock like Fresnillo, because you are a mini Fresnillo to a certain extent. But I think we've pretty much captured everything. You've got a great management team. You've got the record production in Mexico. You're in a commodity that's probably going up. You're always looking for opportunities to create shareholder value. And I think with all of that, have I missed anything, James? It's a pretty exciting stock to buy, isn't it?
Well, it is an exciting stock to buy. I would just like to to thank VSA and thank you for helping us get that exposure in the London market and the British market. And I think that having the shares trade on Aquis for the time being, I think that's a big benefit for us and provides a lot of exposure in exactly the way that you've outlined. People who want a smaller silver company, something that has a little more beta to it. Guanajuato Silver can be that company.
Well, I think it will. I hope you'll be over in the UK talking to people, face to face fairly soon, because our videos also are watched globally. So, if you are in Canada or North America watching it, you can buy it on the TSX-V as well. But James, many thanks for doing this, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Thanks very much.